3, 2, 1.
Good evening and welcome back to the Los Alamitos Unified School District Board meeting. And we came out of closed session. In closed session, we discussed labor negotiations, employee and student issues, but no action was taken. So we are going to open the board meeting, and I did that part, and we are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Brandenberger, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Not your son. You. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Well done. And now we will move on to the executive summary of our work. Of our workshops. Deputy Reed.
Thank you so much, President Hill. Tonight, we were really honored to have the Mcauliffe line community join us, led by Principal Dr. Isaiah Gates and Assistant Principal Mrs. Wendy Wood. They presented a school report as well as two lovely student speakers, an amazing performance by their choir. And so they shared all the highlights of their school site, what they're looking forward to, the amazing support they get from their teachers, from their PTA and Project Seek. And then they closed out really by honoring a very special parent who received the Mcauliffe Hero of the Heart, and that was Mrs. Claudio Beccio Willie.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And we will now move on to the board president's report. I wanted to make sure I got this right this time. And so as many of you may know who have come to our meetings on a regular basis, I've really been trying to customize my report over things that I've heard in the community or parents have emailed me and asked me questions about over the last couple of weeks between board meetings. And one thing that has really risen to the surface, and we've had parents ask questions about lately, is what we are doing as it relates to drug prevention programs. You may know that I heard a statistic on Sunday, watched a show called Sunday Morning, and they said that that overdoses were up some amazing percentage because of fentanyl and a variety of other things, and because of COVID. And so there is really a lot of concern that we need to have related to drug prevention programs and what we can do to really help support and guide our students through this process. And so we'll start with talking about what do we do at a very base level. And I think that that's really where things like Red Ribbon Week, because I practiced that. Red Ribbon Week comes into play, and that has been something that has been, I believe, pervasive in our schools for 25 years, probably close to that or so. And it's really educating children and helping children understand and help children understand how they can live a life that is drug-free and how that can be a really healthy lifestyle. And all of our different sites choose different kind of activities to support that information as well. And then we know as our students start to move up into schools and in our community, you know, we are very blessed in the community we're in. There are plenty of communities where there's truly drug abuse going on in elementary school. And we are very lucky that that is not something that we see that's pervasive here. But as students get closer to moving into their adolescent ages, they become exposed to more things. And so we have random drug testing for secondary schools, middle and high schools. And the way that I kind of liken that program, at least I know I did when I was a parent, what I said to my children were, this allows me to be the bad guy, or that you're going to be tested to be the bad guy. It gives you a way to be able to say no, because we know how strong peer pressure can be. And so if we give children some of those tools to be able to utilize and to be able to move themselves through those social circles and stay healthy, that's what we want to be able to do. And so I am not going to read every bullet point up here, because I know that you're all capable of reading, and I do know that it will also be up on our website and that it is on YouTube. But those are a couple of things that we do that parents can also be involved in with their child, and a decision that is made with their child. And then we move on to detection of canines for secondary school. And this is done where we bring canine dogs onto campuses unannounced, and that allows us to see if there is any kind of substances that are on campus that shouldn't be on campus. We've had a couple of funny situations happen once or twice, but for the most part, it's pretty accurate. And I think that this is also just another preventionary measure that helps. And we're not looking to do this to really punish. We're looking to do this to be able to identify, and then to be able to help those students be able to get to healthier places. We also have a vape education and nicotine cessation program. And this has really been very successful from what I've understood in with some of the students that we identify that may be vaping on campus. Once again, our goal is not to punish them. Our goal is to help them get out of this behavior. And so we partner with the Anaheim Regional Medical Center to provide a 4-week series, hour-long classes to teach children about the dangers of tobacco, nicotine, and vaping. And I know that personally, when I was a student, that there was a program like this that went on at my campus, and I've never been a smoker, never was a smoker. My mother was a smoker, and being able to identify some of the things that were happening within the body when this was happening, and very vividly, really made me never want to do any smoking. So I think it really can be helpful to our students, and then once again, helping our students find healthy lifestyles as well. And then I think Mrs. Gattuli and I were on the board when this first came into play, and I just believed it was really the right thing, and that was an alternative to suspension program. And if you think about it, suspension sometimes can seem kind of counterproductive, right? A student has done something on campus. We know that being on campus with teachers, with the staff, is probably the best place for them to be, but they have done something that they need to understand the consequences for. And so then we say, oh no, you don't have to come to school. Really, it's not very logical in my opinion. So it happens, and we have to do it many times. But it was really great when staff came up with this amazing program that really gave an alternative to suspension, and really put students once again into a program where they could be educated and understand what they were doing, what the consequences were, what they were doing to their body, and really took it to an educational level instead of just being punitive and not necessarily changing behavior. So I've always been really appreciative for that as well. And then I think it's really important that we also educate our parents. I don't know about you, but I remember telling my children when they were growing up, oh, I grew up in the 70s, you can't tell me anything. Oh boy, was I wrong about that. Things change a lot, and there's a lot of things that parents really need to be aware of so that they can look and recognize signs of things that may be going on with their children that they may not know of. And so we do parent education programs, and we have one on March 31st, April 4th, April 25th. And it's Parenting in Today's Society. And I know that we really did a lot of amazing programs as well, not necessarily well, we did do, but wasn't as focused on drug prevention during COVID, but we did a lot with mental health and brought in a lot of specialists to talk to parents so that they could understand how to help their children cope as they were going through things. And then also, if you've never been to a presentation by the Cyber Cop, I found him very entertaining and very informative, and really not judging or judgmental, just matter of fact and things that you could do to really help your students as they move past things. And then just talking a little bit about violence protection and some of our best practices. So we really do depend a lot on the community to be able to know what's going on. We don't have eyes everywhere, but we have community everywhere. So Texatip is a really important tool for us, and we're very excited because we'll be moving to a new program that's called Texatip. Right now, that's literally a phone number that somebody goes to somebody's phone, a staff member's phone, at all times. And then this new Texatip is going to be a much more robust system, and we're really excited about that. And, you know, I know you've seen this in many places throughout your travels, but say something, see something. I mean, see something, say something is really important. It really does matter. I was driving down the boulevard the other morning really early, headed to the gym, and there was a woman walking around completely barefooted, big floppy hat on her head, and what appeared to be a robe. And that did not seem like it was the normal. And so I called 911 and I reported it, and they said, thank you, we've been looking for her. So I think it really is important in our society today that when we see something like that, we can't think, oh, no, I don't want to say that, or I might be embarrassed, or I'm too shy, or no, I'm sure somebody else did it. No. We really need to make sure that we're all participating as citizens and helping each other out in those things. So once again, I hope that gives some people a little bit clearer picture of a lot of the things that the district does as it relates to keeping our students healthy and keeping our students drug free and helping educate them on what can happen. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your attention. And now I'm going to hand it over to Will to give us a much more exciting presentation, I have no doubt.
Hello, everyone. First of all, nice job, Dad, on the Pledge of Allegiance. That was, clap it up for him. That was awesome. Very proud. But good evening, President Hill, esteemed board members, Dr. Pulver, executive cabinet, and community members watching in person or online. I actually have some big news since I've last been here, but I actually just turned 18 and I'm officially an adult. But I've already done my citizen duties. I've been registered to vote. I've signed up for the draft, and I wasted $5 of this scratch-off lottery ticket. But besides that little update, it's time for my 12th board report. As we glide into the end of March and the school year, it's time for all Los Al students to show off their hard work at this year's open house. Open house is tomorrow night and will run from 6 to 7:30 p.m. This once-a-year event gives students a chance to bring their families back to their high school days and walk from class to class. For those that plan on going to open house, if you are ever confused or need help on finding a class, find an ASP member. We will all be in attendance wearing our stylish blue polos as seen in the top right corner. But open house is more than just a culmination of a year's worth of work for students. It's a chance for incoming 8th graders to see some of their future teachers and possible classes. So if you're an 8th grader looking at taking classes at Los Al, this is a great chance to get some more information on classes that you may be confused about. And speaking of 8th graders, this past week, some elective classes at the high school set up booths at Oak and Mcauliffe to promote each of their electives. Some of the electives that set up booths were computer science, 3D design, sports medicine, and the best booth, ASB. I actually got to go to both the Mcauliffe and Oak fairs, and I still fit right in with the younger crowd. You can try and see if you can find me in the top right photo too, but it's pretty hard. I'm not going to lie, promoting some of the elective classes is hard work because students only look for one thing at each booth, whoever has candy. But in all seriousness, these events were a great way to get some prospective high school students excited about their next 4 years. Last week also brought upon a major world celebrated holiday. And I'm not just talking about the start of March Madness, but rather a day that goes on forever and ever and ever and really never ends, and some may say is irrational, Pi Day. March 14th is National Pi Day, named after the irrational number pi, which is the ratio of a circumference of a circle to its diameter. So in celebration of every math teacher's favorite holiday, the LoSal administrative team had pie available for everyone. Students had the option to choose from pie flavors like apple, cherry, peach, and chocolate. And I touched on this last report, but this week is Griffin Games. Well, there's still 3 more days until the most epic assembly ever created this Friday. ASB has some great dress-out days to keep students engaged. On Monday, freshmen and seniors dressed up in their party gear, while sophomores and juniors slept in and wore pajamas. And it's not just students getting engaged, because all teachers have been assigned to either the red or blue team, but I think everyone knows the red team is going to dominate the competition. And I want to clear some confusion really quick that my blue suit is in no way, shape, or form supporting the blue team, as I'm red team all the way. And also, I totally forgot to add this to my slides, but winter formal was last week, and I'm so sorry, but I will get those pictures next report. I took, I think, 700 photos, so I'll have to sort through all of them, but yeah. For this week's athletics slide, I have some more great news coming out of the boys volleyball program, who have been doing amazing recently. Last week, they played against Laguna Beach, where they won in 3 sets, making for a quick game, but also won against Bellflower High School in 3 sets as well. But if you missed those games, don't worry, because tomorrow night at 5:30, the boys will be playing against Edison in their rival game. So make sure to dress in black in order to unplug the chargers, as this game is sure to be intense. And I was not able to spotlight them last week, but today I'm so excited to talk about the fiercest Lady Griffins on campus, the girls softball team. The girls have won their past 3 games, but most noticeably won their game against Sunny Hills High School by 5 runs. They had just started their season, but one of their players, Anjali Moline, says they have started strong and are going to do great this season. And now we dive into swim, who have been breaking some records recently. Last week, Aiden Sandvig broke a 10-year-old record for the 100-meter backstroke at the Mater Dei meet. Other athletes like Jake Luganbiel, Marcus Moore, Samantha Banos all won 2 individual events. On the tennis court, boys tennis is just starting their season. The team won 18-0 against Newport Beach High School and also won against Huntington Beach High School. They have more games coming up, and most of them take place at the LoSal tennis courts, so be sure to stop by. Now, I'm not sure if anyone heard about the biggest performance of the year for choir, but if not, I'm here to talk about the All-District Choral Festival. This yearly event is where all choirs ranging from the elementary school, middle schools, and high school all unite for one stellar performance. It is here that even the youngest performers have a chance to take a jab at the big stage in front of everyone and get a feel what the future has to offer. And this year's events had a great turnout, hosting over 1,000 guests on the LoSal track. Every single school performed, all leading up to the finale from the Sound Effects Choir, who absolutely killed their nationally ranked performance. And speaking of sound effects, all 67 members of the group are leaving tomorrow for their national competition, which takes place in Nashville, Tennessee, where they'll be performing at the Grand Ole Opry. And if it's anything like years past, it's no doubt they will be bringing home the gold. And now on a much smaller note, and I mean much smaller, starting tomorrow and running through Friday, LoSal's art department presents the Tiny Art Show. This is a chance for students in art classes, from 3D design to drawing and painting to even ceramics, to show off some of their microscopic displays of art. The first showing is tomorrow during open house, and will be located in the Griffin Art Gallery, located directly outside the 700s building. And now I'm especially excited for this week's teacher time because I'm going to be spotlighting one of my favorite teachers of all time, Profe Kelly. This is Profe Kelly's 4th year at LoSal, where she's been teaching Spanish 1 and Spanish 2, but she's been teaching for 6 years overall. Besides teaching, she's also the boys' varsity volleyball coach. She started coaching over 10 years ago when she went to the University of Maryland, Baltimore College, and has loved it since. She especially loves to flex the fact that every single year since she has started at LoSal, her team has been league champions, which they have not won since 1998. Outside of school, she is married to her husband, Sean, who is currently a strength training coach at USC and is a deadlift world champion. But when both Sean and Profe Kelly are not spending time with their athletes, they're spending time with their favorite 2-year-old and daughter, Penny. A typical weekend for the family includes trips to the beach, good cooking, ABC's The Bachelor, and yoga. Profe Kelly calls LoSal her home because she feels as kids in the district are welcomed. She loves the fact that all students are taught to both be academically challenged, but also athletically fierce, not something commonly found in the U.S. Profe Kelly has loved her time at LoSal and cannot wait for more. As her first group of students graduate this year, I was actually one of them, she is so happy for their future as well. Profe Kelly is an amazing teacher that truly strives to make LoSal a better place. Every day, she walks into not only her classroom, but also the gym. As her team keeps destroying the competition, it's no doubt they have another great championship title under their belt. For this week's Student Spotlight, we are lucky enough to be in the presence of one of the best leaders around campus, Ava Mendoza. Ava is currently a senior at LoSal, having taken over 13 AP classes. Besides academics, Ava is also involved in advanced dance. She's been dancing since she was 6 years old and loves it because of the supportive community of teachers and friends she has. But Ava doesn't stop at dance. She's the president of a plethora of clubs. Ava is the president of the California Scholastic Federation, a board member on Spanish Honor Society, and a president of the CASA Youth Shelter Leadership Program. Her involvement in these clubs comes down to one thing: Ava's love for the well-being of others and her ability to make Los Alamitos a better community. Through her volunteer hours, she's been able to connect students to safe housing, rigorous academic scholarships, and volunteer opportunities in the community. As Ava prepares to leave for college, she has many options on her hand as she applied to more than 20 schools. Currently, her tops are Yale, Stanford, and UCLA, but she's still deciding. But any college would be lucky enough to have her, as her presence is welcome within any team, club, or sports program she finds herself on. Ava has made LoSal a better place for all, not just in helping students around campus, but also families and organizations in need. She truly embodies what it means to be a Griffin and is bound to be a future leader one day. Congratulations on all your hard work, Ava, and thank you for being a friend of mine for 7 years. Hats off to you. But for now, that's all for this report, folks. Thanks for listening, and to those at home, thank you for watching. Have a good night.
So, Will, I have a couple questions for you. So the volleyball game tomorrow night at 5:30, is it at Edison?
So it's going to be at the LoSal gym, and it's going to run directly into open house. So I recommend maybe visit a couple house classes and then go and see volleyball.
Thank you. And we should be wearing black.
Black. We're not supposed to advertise that, but wear black.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And since you took 700 pictures at Winter Formal, was it fun?
It was amazing. They had this dinosaur hanging in the ceiling and then an LED screen that made it look like it was floating in water. And I loved that. There was a very crazy mosh pit that I could not handle and karaoke. So I liked it. It was very fun.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Any
course.
other questions from the board? Thank you very much. Well, we will move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Pulver.
Thank you, Madam President, esteemed members of the board. Will, I can't believe that was your 12th report. Yeah, can't wait for more to continue. So great job. My lucky number is 13 because I'm the 13th out of 15. So next board report is going to be awesome. I know it. In any event, I was able to go to our our boys volleyball game last week. That was a great game, and I need to get to a softball game, and I know I've been scheduled to go to one of the swim meets. So thanks for highlighting the different events there. Speaking of, today I had the extreme pleasure, and I know Mr. Fayette joined me as well. The London Symphony Orchestra actually visited Los Alamitos High School, our orchestra class at, I think that's 5th period, right after lunch. So I believe that they're here to do a performance at Segerstam, and so Segerstam is reaching out to a few schools to be able to kind of offer a master class, if you would. They had 2 of the instruments, individuals who perform for the London Symphony Orchestra who really just got to give exceptional masterclass coaching, just a little finessing in that. So what an amazing opportunity for our students. Our teacher, Mr. Padilla, just said it was an opportunity of a lifetime for our students, and it was great fun to be able to be part of that today. So thank you, Justin, for inviting us. And I'm not going to go much more because I think Scott might add a little bit, so I don't want to take that away. But we also have several congratulations to further, as you acknowledge. Last Friday, ACSA, which is Association of California School Administrators, and then our local Region 17. I love that a group of administrators, we do this every year where we honor and recognize students who overcome remarkable challenges in life to still find success. And they really celebrate the individual student along with the team that supported them. And so William Bignami is a student at Mcauliffe Middle School. So the principal, the counselor, and his parents, along with some of us up here, were able to just recognize him. And all of the students got, I think it was a $100 gift card to Boomers, a Chromebook, a beautiful medal that was engraved. And it was at the Bowers Museum, and just a spectacular. So I want to thank ACSA and really congratulate William on this incredible accomplishment. And then I know some of you acknowledged us at our last board meeting. I'm so proud. We are so fortunate to have exceptional teachers. And as a district our size, the county only allows us to recognize one district teacher of the year. So thank you to our Lions, who typically allow us to recognize one from every school at a separate event. But I'm proud to announce that Angie Haas, who's been with us for over 25 years as a kindergarten teacher at Hopkinton, who just epitomizes everything wonderful, the quintessential kindergarten teacher who just loves students. During the pandemic, she was actually delivering resources to the class, to the school sites, sidewalk chalk and messages on their front doors or near their front, on the front of their house, etc. She's been on our inclusion committee, but just an exceptional teacher, and we'll be highlighting her at a board meeting in April. But congratulations to Angie, and we'll do more recognitions later. And then we acknowledged earlier, and Armando is going to be recognized as our district classified employee of the year. But we were just able to announce yesterday publicly that Armando has been acknowledged throughout the county as the Orange County classified employee of the year. And Armando Gomez works in our IT department, all of our databases, our areas. If you've had to call into the help desk as a parent and need some support, you've probably talked to Armando or Sophia. But just amazing support behind the scenes that we would not be able to do. So congratulations to Armando as well. And then you heard Will talk a little bit about open house. This is the season of open house. I think it was last week. We started off our season of open houses, which is just a great event that we got to celebrate. We didn't get to do that last year during the hybrid setting due to the various restrictions at the time. But both middle schools had open house on March 10th, and with just a wonderful celebration throughout our middle schools. You heard Will acknowledge that tomorrow night, our high school, the Griffins, they're actually kind of merging this. We're just a showcase. So for our 8th grade families who are looking to go to the high school next year, we're actually doing a spring showcase for them. It starts at 5 p.m. in the Performing Arts Center, where there'll be welcome presentations, and they'll get to meet the counselors, et cetera, and be able to ask questions. And then our traditional open house for Los Alamitos High School will be from 6 to 7:30 right on the Griffin campus. Dr. Stone, as we've talked about in the past, where he wrote the book. Leif is hosting a signing event where Dr. Stone will be signing the books as well. And then our adult transition program, that is our students who are on a pathway for additional schooling supports from 18 to 22. That is right here at our district office. And so their open house aligns with our high school as well. So that is tomorrow night here from 6 to 7 p.m. in their classroom right on the district campus. And then we'll have our elementary open houses. And we've traditionally done elementary over 2 different weeks to allow our families who have students with special needs who might be at a different school as well as students at a home school. So we have on April 7th, Weaver Elementary, Hopkinton, Rossmore, and Lee. And then on April 14th, we have LAE and McGaw. Some of them have some different times there you can see, but we're pleased to be able to celebrate our open houses and to welcome our parents once again to just see the amazing accomplishments of our students. It was so fun when I was visiting the middle schools to see parents and students showing the kids their work, their QR codes, and parents were taking pictures of the QR codes and looking up some of the research and things that our students have done. So quite a celebration for our students and for our families to take a look at with our work going on in our campuses. And then lastly, to wrap up my superintendent's report, I'm pleased that with our new communications officer, Ms. Nicole Pichardo, we've been working on a way to how we can kind of celebrate and connect what goes on within our schools to the students, to our families, and even our staff, because sometimes we don't know everything that's going on across. And while we couldn't create a video that would do everything in a week, because that'd be a very long video, and I don't think our attention spans are that. We did launch last week the inaugural wrap-up. It's just about 2.5 minutes, and I thought I'd play it for all of us here to look forward to seeing more of these in the coming weeks.
I'm Nicole Pichardo, Communications and Public Information Officer for the Los Alamitos Unified School District, and welcome to your first episode of The Wrap-Up. Monday was National Pie Day, and there were plenty of activities for students to commemorate the occasion. At Los Alamitos High School, students were treated to mini pies served by our very own Board of Education members, May Catuli and Chris Forhan, as well as Superintendent Dr. Pulver and some very special parent volunteers. In addition to mini pies, staff were also treated to a very special pizza pie luncheon. Students and staff at Oak and Mcauliffe Middle Schools also participated in various pie-themed activities, with Mcauliffe principal Dr. Wieswright even taking a pie to the face. Speaking of Mcauliffe, Board and Executive Cabinet members, along with Dr. Wieswright, gathered this week to celebrate Mcauliffe 7th grader Will Bignami for earning the 2022 AXA Every Student Succeeding Award for Region 17. The annual program honors students who've overcome tremendous obstacles, showing us the true meaning of courage and resilience. Later in the week, Board and Executive Cabinet members made a special stop at Rossmore Elementary to pin staff members and recognize them for their hard work and loyalty to Los Al Unified. 7 Rossmore staff members were celebrated for reaching 5, 10, 15, and even 30 years of service with the district. And finally, March is Music in Our Schools Month, so it only seemed fitting that we kicked off the celebration by hosting the annual All-District Choral Festival. Tuesday night's event featured performances from students in 4th through 12th grade. We couldn't be more thankful for our incredible music teachers and directors at each school site for your passion, loyalty, and dedication to these aspiring singers and performers. We'll close out our inaugural episode featuring the beautiful sounds of our Los Al USD middle and elementary school choirs. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Dr. Pulver. We are really so grateful to have Nicole here, and hitting the ground running is not even, I'm not even sure that's strong enough. She just came in and has owned it and has been wonderful. So thank you very much. And thank you for keeping our community informed. We appreciate that very much, Nicole. So I am going to go ahead and we're going to start board communication. I want to make sure, because I'm trying to do this in a very fair and progressive manner. Our public comments are up next. It says very clearly in our, and I'll read it before we get started, but we take public comment cards starting at 9 a.m. on the day of the board meeting and will be accepted at the start of the board meeting. So I want to make sure that's clear. If somebody has come in and hasn't filled out a card, last chance, and then we will move on with the cards we have. And part of the reason for that is that we really need to know what we have as it relates to timing on how many cards. We've had so many cards lately that we want to hear from everybody, so we've had to extend the time. So I just want to make sure that we have all of them in. So we're going to start with board communication, and Mr. Fayette. It's nice to see you in person.
Thank you. So Chris, I'm going to jump in at the end of Chris. When you do the cars, I'll finish up because we had done that division you were going to talk about. Or do you want to talk about the winner? About the cars? Yeah. Is your mic, his mic is on? You can do it. Okay. Yes, I know. I was actually talking to Chris. So just clarifying some things out. So can you hear me now? Awesome. All right. So tons of great things going on in the district this week and last week. I got to enjoy A couple of things I want to highlight. One of them was Mr. Forehand and I got to go to Oak Middle School and watch CO2 racers. Over several days, these kids competed against each other one-on-one. They built these little cards, CO2 cartridges, and they launched them across the basketball court at Oak Middle School. They did it for days. And then at lunch on Monday, we went, and Mr. Forehand and I witnessed the final elimination round. It came down to a young lady, Chloe, versus Joaquin. These are the two fastest cars at Oak Middle School. They go off. They go the entire length of the basketball court in usually 1 to 2 seconds. Chloe car clocks in at 1.122 seconds. Just a touch over 1 second to go the whole length of the basketball court. Joaquin's car came in at 1.122 seconds. I did not repeat. They both came in at the exact same time to the thousandth second. It was incredible. It's like a rocket going across the floor. I want to say the two teachers that did that program, it was incredible to see kids engaged and loving. Learning was awesome. They hand-built these cars themselves. It reminded me of the old Cub Scout days with the Pinewood Derby cars. Mm-hmm. It was amazing. Kids got to play with bandsaws and sanders and all kinds of other scary equipment. So just congratulations to Chloe and Joaquin. I can't believe it. They tied to the 100th of a second. It was just amazing. Incredible to watch. The other thing which Mr. Pulver, or Dr. Pulver, touched on was the London Symphony Orchestra. 2 members, Robert and Norm, showed up today, and it was unbelievable. Our kids got to sit and play with members of the London Symphony Orchestra. The 2 gentlemen couldn't have been nicer. I was enthralled. They both actually had an accent, so it was very cool to talk with them. And they would play, and they wanted to play with the kids, and they would stop, and Mr. Padilla was so gracious saying, hey, what do you have? And they pointed out these little things, and I'm not musically inclined at all. I love listening to it, but I can't perform it at all. And you could hear, even my unsophisticated ear, when they would give the kids these little pointers, just these little things. Oh, they teach you to rest your thumb on the bridge. No, take your thumb off and get it free, because then you can get a better pluck with the violin, and you could hear the difference in the sound. And they talked about bow speed and bow play, and it was just an incredible 50 minutes of class. I'm sure that the kids didn't want to leave. I didn't. I thought it was incredible. The kids sounded amazing. When I started clapping, Mr. Padilla had to tell me that's just the warm-up piece. That's not actually performing. And they probably have already finished their competition, but they had a competition in Corona today. So, Mr. Padilla, good luck. Hopefully, I think they've already finished, but hopefully they did well. And the other thing I want to say, and the young man, William, who we've highlighted, who, every student succeeds. Did you see that mugshot? I mean, that's a headshot. He looks perfect. Solo in the choir, a super kid. He is so nice, so well behaved. I've known the family for years. You have no idea the tragedy that befell their family, the hardships that they had to go through. Even when someone looks perfect, you don't know what's going on in their lives. You don't know the hardships. In these times, kindness, compassion, it never runs out. The more kindness and compassion you have and give, it doesn't run out. It's not like a gas tank that can run on empty. It only grows. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fayette. Those were very powerful words, but you also did give me a really good idea. So I am a huge F1 fan. So I think I'm going to go to Netflix and I'm going to sell to them the CO2. I think they need to do a show on CO2 just like F1. I think we have a winner there. Oh, we did that. We talked a little bit about it. Yeah. So, Mrs. Mrs. Cattouli.
I don't know if I want to follow this conversation, but okay, I'll go back to the mundane. I did have an ROP meeting, which is our Career Technical Ed Board that I also serve on to represent LaSalle. And I'm very proud to say that one of our Administrator of the Year from Orange County ROP, which is Gail Karras, is now the county's Career Technical Education Administrator of the Year. So I think, LaSalle spreads its wings and people follow and great things happen. I want to thank the parents of the high school students, because when I was giving out the pies on Pie Day, those kids are so polite. We couldn't hand them out, legally until lunchtime, because we didn't want kids who weren't in class to get rewarded for not being in class. And they were so nice. They go, okay, I'll come back. I'll thank you anyway. And I would hand them out. But it's just a joy to be on the campus. So I want to say thanks to the parents for doing that. The All-District Choral Festival is one of my favorite activities of the entire year. It's just the progression from 4th grade to being in 12th grade and the excitement of the students. And big kudos to Andrea Reed and Melissa Davis. I can't imagine the minutia that you guys had to take care of to have it on the campus. But I thought it was fabulous there. And our music teachers are just totally outstanding to bring it all together. It's amazing. I was also able to walk through Hopkinson, which is always a joyful thing to do. Teaching and learning is well and in the forefront, and the kids are all smiling and having a great time, and that was great. I was also, as mentioned before, I was at the longevity pins at Rossmore, and I do believe it is really nice that we recognize all staff members. It's hard to really do it in a significant way, but I think the staff's beginning to look forward to it since we've been doing this for several years. And I just really love being there, and it's just wonderful. I was able to attend a meeting with Assemblywoman Janet Nguyen. It was set up from CSBA. It's their ledge a couple of weeks for us to get together and talk with across the state, have everyone talk about education theoretically to every elected official that reports to Sacramento. And we were actually able to meet with Assemblywoman Nguyen, and she's represents our district, and she has always been very involved. She has children of her own, and she will ask questions, informative questions, where she has some background on it, and ask what she can do to help us. So that was really great. And I had a meeting with the Orange County School Boards Association over giving the Maureen DeMarco Award. And I just want to make a comment about our Heroes of the Heart. And it kind of struck me today when we had McGaw give their presentation and we had our Hero of the Heart, is that the people who are, it seems, the people who are recognized as our Heroes of the Heart are all very self-effacing, dedicated people who are just doing what they think they should be doing. And they're just trying to support children, and they have kids of their own because they're at the school site. But they all just seem to be such incredible people, and it is just very reflective of our community. And it just really struck me today that if we could get a room of all the Heroes of the Hearts in it, it would be a really powerful place to be. That's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Cattouli. That was wonderful. I'm going to go down to Mrs. Davidson and then come back to you, Mr. Forham.
Okay. So it's been an active 2 weeks, and I honestly, hands down to you, Mrs. Hill, how you can have a full-time job and do all of the things that you do, because it's really next to impossible. Pretty much sure you have a clone. But I started out the 2 weeks at the Mcauliffe music concert, in which all of the bands, jazz band, they all played and were remarkable. The room was completely packed out, cheering parents, cheering fans. And then I raced literally over to the high school to make it for the 7 o'clock drama performance, which was a musical about the 80s, which of course took me back and made me embarrassed to think I actually wore those kind of clothes at one point. But they were phenomenal and was so joyful and wonderful. Then we had the Mcauliffe open house, which, like the open house tomorrow night, is not just going to open up as an open house. They're having you're going to have that special presentation for 8th grade parents. But the Mcauliffe open house started with a presentation of short films created by students, and then they were awarded in different categories. Literally, there was only standing room going out the door, and it's so much pride and joy. And these were so incredibly clever. I can't imagine how these kids did what they did. But they were so diverse in presentation and the materials used and the messaging, but it was really impressive. Then to walk onto the campus and go to the classrooms. Mcauliffe is my home. I taught there for over 20 years, and it made me feel so proud to see the incredible work that our students are doing and the diversity in the kind of work that they do. I remember when I started teaching, it was mainly essays, fill in the blanks, worksheets, and now there is so much creativity, there is so much innovation, problem solving. I said, I would have actually liked math if I went to school now. The problems that they were solving, which would go faster, a snail or whatever, and the snail gets credit for going this fast a minute, and it's really even a number I don't understand. It's so tiny. But then I went to the district potluck, in which Armando Gomez was presented the Classified Employee of the Year, as Dr. Pulver talked about. And there are just people, do the work because they love it and do not want recognition, but he gets this gigantic award for the county. Think of all of the people who competed or could have been chosen for that. And it was funny because it was like Dr. Pulver had a hook. He kept slipping away and no, you can't go yet. And then they handed him balloons, and the balloons kind of wrapped all around him, and he had flowers. And every time somebody would come up to say something, it looked like he kind of inched a little bit further. But I think he knew that everybody in the room was just so happy and proud for him. And like I've said before, there's nothing like the tech department. They solve problems and keep the district going. They're the lifeblood. They're the veins that run all of the energy and productivity and the messaging. So congratulations, Mr. Gomez, even if you don't want the recognition. I went to the choir extravaganza on Saturday, and that was a real unique experience because the high school choir invited all these other schools to participate and get practice in their competition performances. And we also performed, but the choir removed themselves from being able to get an award. But I have to tell you, when I think about mental health, and I can't sing worth beans, and I take out a dance line, but it was so joyful to be in that room because when there wasn't a performance, the other high school groups were sitting in the seats. They were out of the seats dancing to the music that was playing on the speakers. You couldn't stop the happiness. And it was so wonderful because when I saw our girls choir come up and perform, it was obvious that people know how great our choir is. 7 straight years of national championship, because you watch the kids from the other schools almost slip to the fronts of their seats and on edge with excitement. And when our choir got done, and it was better than any Broadway show I've been to, the people were on their feet screaming and clapping, and it went on for probably 3 or 4 minutes. So it just really is a credit to David and Moana and all of the people who put these programs together. And it was just, such a source of joy for me. And to know that so many kids from everywhere, no matter what stage of development their group is in, are celebrating each other and celebrating song. And that's such a healthy key to making sure kids are okay and happy. So I'm really grateful for that. And I think there's one more thing. Last night I went to the Human Relations Committee, and Mrs. Reed and Dr. Fraser, you did a great job of running it, and Danielle was wonderful in her presentation. And I really am excited about the things that have been done. Some of it was waylaid by the pandemic, but they're off to a great start once again. And I really appreciate the work that's being done by everyone on that committee. Finally, I wanted to give a shout out to Leif and the after-school programs, and 2 women in particular who have done drama year in and year out there and worked miracles with little groups and come up with plays in a short period of time, and that's Coralie Prince and Donna Artukovic. And I especially want to focus on Donna because over the past few meetings, including last night, her name was mentioned in association with mine. I want to say that as an elected official, I am totally fair game, whatever you choose to say about me. But I have to believe that judgment on Donna is based on guilt by association. And I think that probably we need to acknowledge, so everybody knows who they're talking about, what this woman is truly like. In 1985, excuse me, you'll get your chance. Yeah. In 1985, when I entered my daughter in kindergarten at Hopkinson, she was the PTA president. She walked up to me, introduced herself, and said, "So, what jobs would you like to do?" And from that point on, I knew to never say no to Donna, because she never says no to the good work done in this district. From the point of my nephew being a 5th grader at Hopkinson, she did the most glorious plays with Coralie every single year, included every 5th grader and almost every 4th grader, won all kinds of awards, but the awards didn't matter to her. It was what she was doing on her own as a donated time for these kids. And it's been a long time, because my nephew was the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz, and he's 45 years old. So she has dedicated her time for a long time. Donna was the first person ever in the state of California to chair a bond bill and get a school bond passed, the first time in any school district in the state of California, which opened doors to further bonds that have allowed us to do some wonderful programs. Donna was a drama teacher at Mcauliffe when I was there, and kids would spend their lunches with her because she was pure joy. She has served on every committee and chaired and led every committee in PTA throughout the district. She's received every HSA award in existence. She served on the school board, and she continues to serve us on the district PTA. So in my life, I've met some wonderful people. She is the most intelligent person I have ever met. She is the kindest person, and she is also the most giving person with the highest level of energy possible. So when you mention her name, you need to understand that if I asked, there would be hundreds upon hundreds of people who would tell stories of how she has touched their lives. So once again, I am free game, but I ask you to please realize that Donna is guilty of nothing except associating with people that you don't particularly like. So thank you.
Mr. Forham.
Yes, I am ready.
I
got it all spread out here. I got to attend the Oak and Mcauliffe open houses, and they were so hugely attended that was fabulous. I did serve pie with Meg, and we were really good at it. And we were for the high school. I participated in walks at Hopkinson and Rossmore, and the Huskies and the Knights are in great shape with very caring staffs taking good care of them. I attended for the board the SELPA special ed meeting, and we're getting ready to announce applications for staff that is in our special ed program to recognize them for service and above. And I think that would be pretty hard to choose one or two. I bet it's going to be a bunch. I attended the reading celebration at Rossmore last Friday, and I got to hand Violet her 17th million word medal. That means she's got 17 medals, and she must be quite the reader. The CO2 cars were great, and we got to see the finals. I attended to the Human Relations Task Force, and probably only second time I've got to watch Danielle help a group come together, and it just seemed to be all in the same room talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and what those terms mean. I think it's a great start, as you said, and we're moving forward. Longevity pins at Rossmore, I attended that. Then I go to Broadway, as I always do, and I saw the Mcauliffe Instrumental Music Program, the Mcauliffe Film Festival, which was very interesting, and then the All-District Choir, which probably, Meg, I would agree, was the highlight of my life, my year. Then I'm going to be going to the Metropolitan Museum of Art every month, I think, because our kids' reflections, PTA reflections, were on display at the community center, and amongst our art were the art of community members, and it was great to let our kids see this is other ways to do it, and especially one little grandson of mine whose art was on display. When I move on to staff, elementary conferences this week, and kudos to all our teachers for building even a stronger relationship with the parents of our kids. The wellness counseling program is great, and I think as a board, we're very proud that we moved in that direction. And we had a 2-page write-up in our weekly report about kindness and everything they did in February, from teaching little kids about what is a random act of kindness, to middle school kids got to play kindness challenge bingo, and then talking about catching kindness. We have group counseling going out at the 2 middle school sites before and after school. And then the last was at the high school, which they did counseling, kindness-themed activities as well. And these kindness activities, focused activities for student and staff, highlighted the benefits of connection and compassion and as important parts of our overall wellness. The Peacemakers at Lee just received the Hershey heartwarming project gift of money to keep their project, where the Peacemakers in 5th grade help the little kids maintain peace on the kindergarten yard, which is always a challenge for anybody. And I consider our PTAs as part of our staff, because you can't go anywhere without seeing something they're doing that supports our schools. And Scott, that was what I was going to add. We wouldn't have that CO2 race without Oak's involvement, their PTA. Yeah, and it just made it happen. And the pies and assemblies, it's all great. And then I'll end with kids, as I always do, and kudos to Brandon DeMarco, a high schooler. I think he's a senior. He collected 1,000 books from his neighborhood to deliver to a Los Angeles school where little kids don't have access to books. And way to go, Brandon. And then Sophia June, a Oak student, won the Susan B. Anthony Award for the whole state. And then national, she went on, and all you'd have to do is read her poem, In the Wind of Eternity, to know this is one great kid who's got it all together. So kudos, Sophia. Hope you're watching. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Forham. As you can tell, it's been a busy couple of weeks. Mcauliffe Open House, I was really disappointed I didn't get to see the film festival, but it was really nice that a link was sent out, and just joyful to see people back on campus. I did have an interaction with a parent who did talk to me about the resolution that we had passed, and about having the opportunity to make sure that our Assembly and senators were aware of it, and how we could be able to access a portal to put that in. And then thank you, Mrs. Gattuli, for CSBA and our legislative meeting with Janet Nguyen. And I did ask her at that point in time, and she was going to follow up and make sure that I had that information. So that is a lot of things people don't see that we do and in activities in other places to advocate for the things that is important to our district. It's not just what's here in the boardroom. We're doing advocacy all over the place. The all district choir performance, I have to say that my favorite part is when our high school men's group brings up all of the middle school and elementary school boys choirs, and it is just spectacular. And I was keyed on one high school student and one 5th grader when I was watching. I just couldn't take my eyes off of him, because the 5th grader was just watching him with such awe and doing everything that he did. And it was just very heartwarming. And I remember when, in the days when boys didn't think being in choir was so cool, and I'm not sure there's much cooler on our campus, to be honest. Every student succeeding was an amazing way, an amazing breakfast. And to see there is a booklet of students from all over the county and what these students have gone through to be able to find the success that they have. is just, it helps us remember that resilience and perseverance are very important skills that need to be learned. Rossmore longevity pens was amazing for me. It's a little scary that there's probably only 2 teachers I recognize from the time my students went there. That means it was a long time ago. So agenda planning, thank you very much, Executive Cabinet and Dr. Pulver. The potluck was fun, and whosever brilliant idea it was to put the prize and to put it under Armando's seat was just very good. I had an opportunity to have a lunch meeting with an app that is local to this community and really trying to do great stuff in this community called the Do Good app. And it was really nice to be able to talk to them. They wanted to talk to me about, because I have I work very strongly with a nonprofit in the community, and then also because being the school district and just also having done Taste for LaSalle for 22 years. I was at Run Seal Beach, and I was there representing the nonprofit I work with, but I had an opportunity to see so many of our students, and so I had to be there at 6:30 in the morning, and I saw our students all over the place. And what you may not know is that a lot of our students actually work the event, and they work the event to be able, because then grants are given out, and so a lot of our students from different clubs work the event as well. And then I had the honor of being with Dr. Pulver yesterday and honoring Chief Nunez, or former Chief Nunez, as he went into his retirement, and thank him for all that he's been doing. And then I'll just finish with saying that I bring up Sunday morning again, but they did a great piece on what we're having to do for mental health after COVID, and how many people it is impacting, and the resources that need to come. And I'm just very proud of this district for all the resources that we've been proactive with that, and we have added counselors, and we are recognizing that and doing whatever we can with our students. So on that note, I believe we are done with communication, and we will move on to the public comment section of our meeting. The board welcomes input from the public. This is an opportunity for the community members to provide public comment to the board on agenda items or items not listed on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the board should complete a speaker request form prior to the start of the meeting. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and I believe I have 9 cards, so I think we're good with that time frame, for a total of 30 minutes of public comment. Public comment cards will be submitted to the district office anytime after 9 a.m. the day of the board meeting, and will also be accepted at the start of the meeting. A speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another. When addressing the board, speakers are requested to address the board from the podium and state their name and adhere to time limits. The board may not take action or discuss any items not appearing on the posted agenda and cannot immediately respond to public comments. Speakers are cautioned under the California law, no person is immune from the liability of making intentionally false or defamatory comments regarding any person simply because those comments are made in public. So thank you very much for that, and we will start with Stacy Muller.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. That was quite a PR show. I feel like, I don't even know what to say. I feel like actually like Facebook, when you go scroll through Facebook, oh my God, look at this beautiful family. They're everything, single thing looks so perfect, but on the inside, you know, you hear about the dark secrets back behind those scenes. I don't know, I like being real, and I like hearing about some of the problems we have too, and we have lots of them. It'd be nice to talk about that instead of talking about every single thing that's amazing and positive, which is also good to hear. I love Will's thing. It's my favorite part of the show. It does feel like a show, especially because you have a mask on at this meeting, but not the 4:30, and I'm confused why. Because you're following the science, I imagine. Scott. So it's funny that you guys talked about the going last night to Danielle Nava's thing. I went. I was actually, first time I've met her, I've emailed her multiple times, and I was actually glad to meet her. I was surprised that I learned absolutely nothing. She was going to unpack all this stuff. She unpacked a lot of stuff. I don't know who else was there, but I didn't learn anything. I mean, it was all candy-coated, sweet talk, very nice lady, very likable. I can see why you hired her. But the topics, diversity, equity, and inclusion, are serious, loaded topics. And I didn't hear anything about those real topics. That's my opinion. I've talked to multiple people that feel the same way. And I just think it was a great opportunity to hear, what's behind those serious words. Because it certainly was candy-coated, just like this meeting has been so far. And so I wanted to mention that, and I also wanted to mention that we have, I think it's good to take accountability for things. I think we need to work on that. And actually, it's funny, I know some people that have retired from here and left this district to go work at other districts, and three of them, the first thing they said about this district is that there's no accountability. It's very interesting. I think that's interesting feedback. Accountability is a huge, it creates trust. When you take accountability for things and you acknowledge something that's gone wrong, it helps me to know that I can trust you, that you actually know right from wrong. I'm not gonna say it again, what I think you were accountable for that you didn't take accountability for at the OSS camp, along with multiple issues that I have with this board, which is why we're recalling Scott, who's in my district, and I'm looking forward to that. It's a big stance to take a stand for the kids. You guys have voted 5-0 on everything, and you talk about diversity. That's not diverse. 5-0 on everything.
Thank you. Lauren?
This is why you're being recalled, Scott. Scott, you are rude, so rude. I recall when we met up with you, us concerned parents at Starbucks, you asked if I was a witch because I reminded you. You didn't? Okay. Because I reminded you of your wife because I could call out bullshit. You got one thing right. But I'm the good witch and you are the dark, okay? You're the dark. Whose Children Are They is a groundbreaking documentary and a powerful, persuasive documentary featuring brave teachers, empowered parents, and frontline experts who pull back the curtain about what is truly happening in our public schools today. This film will be the starting point for a full cultural conversation about the need to return to the original intent of education, not indoctrination. Whose Children Are They will inform and equip parents, teachers, grandparents, and concerned citizens to partner together for the innocence and well-being for our children. It is also to educate all education stockholders on the corruption, influence of teachers' unions, and the vital importance of removing them from our schools. In addition to educating parents on the need to stand with good teachers and empowered teachers to stage a mass union exit. Guess what, Ms. Davison? You are featured in this documentary. Not as a good teacher, but as a bully who picks on concerned, innocent parents who voice concern. Shame on you. You are a bully. Donna Arktalkovich is a bully. Your sister, Marlon Barnett, is a bully. You can make all the excuses you want, but your true colors have shown, and you should be ashamed. I know more parents stand behind me than you. Thank you.
Leland J.
Good evening, Board. I'd like to lead with a message to our teachers. In my view, there's no greater contribution to this world than by teaching and helping others to become better human beings. To our teachers and administrators, thank you for teaching, inspiring, and believing in our kids. They will never forget you, and we will never forget what you've done for us during this time. To Dr. Pulver and Mrs. Reed, I felt pretty down after hearing the public comments and personal attacks at the last meeting, and it left me feeling pretty hopeless about our district morale. But the all-district choral festival at the high school that you made happen was the perfect medicine. I want to especially thank Mrs. Reed for her efforts. It was truly a celebration of what is possible when we all come together. And that leads me to my final point. I'd like to address those parents who are angry or who have been angry about various things. I am begging you to stop. The vitriol and fury in this room has a corrosive effect, and it has seeped into our community and onto our schoolyard playgrounds. It has broken the hearts of some of our teachers. I know that you are angry, and I may even agree with you on certain points. But Scott Fayette is a good and decent person and does not deserve what you are attempting to do. Our schools are not a battleground. Our children are not soldiers. There's been collateral damage and wounds that need to heal. Our community does not need to open up new wounds. We are not the enemy. We adore your kids. We don't want you to leave. We want harmony. But we are begging you to stop. And if you can't, then from the shared love that we all have for our children, can we at least find it within ourselves to turn down the rhetoric and hostility in this room? But I'm begging you to stop.
Thank you. And Yasmin Yang, and you did have a card already filled out. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure my name was not called, or was not going to be called. I wanted to thank you for your efforts to prevent and also respond to the pervasive drug problem here in Los Al. And also thank you for your polite attention. I also want to reinforce the point that I am so grateful to these parents who are here to emphasize that they do have, and I want to emphasize that they do have much to do in their lives, that they're good Samaritans and guardians of our Los Al community here and those of you online, united to protect our most valuable currency, our children. I'm grateful for the workshop last night, unpacking diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. We got to unpack the definition, and I walked away wondering, like that burger commercial, where's the beef? And then today, it dawned on me that, wait a minute, there is such a contrast and a duality with the DEI and the way we respond to COVID. So I'm going to precede this with saying, even if you put lipstick on a pig, it doesn't change the pig. Okay. So on the one hand, we seek equity. And equity, as defined last night, development of structures to reduce inequities in schools, practices, and systems, different needs are accounted for. On the other hand, we have this issue with no one seeming to recognize children's needs not to get vaccinated, children's needs not to be masked all day long at school. So this board in Sacramento does not support medical, religious, or personal exemptions, obviously. This board does not push back on indiscriminate masking mandates. And this board and many parents who are keyboard warriors do not accept and respect that there are parents here to speak up for the safety and education of our children. There's no mean intentions at all. We're not selfish. We're not domestic terrorists. And the other definition that I learned last night was inclusiveness. Consider the whole child in all ways, social, emotional, ability, and identity. So even if they identify as non-binary, transgender, or a cat, we need to honor that. I heard that on social media, and I thought, oh my God, where have we gone? Accountability of self and others is present under the definition of inclusion. And I thought, oh, accountability. That's a big word. That's a big word for this district. That's a big word for the governor. That's a big word for CDC, FDA, NIH, our government in general. How can we make people more accountable? In any case, the clinical trial data has proven that Pfizer alone, a very short clinical trial period, there were 1,200 people dead and 25,957 people with central nervous disorders. No one's talking about it. You guys must know about it because we know about it. In any case, SB 871 is going forward and SB 866 is going forward, basically mandating that all kids get back.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Tracy G.
Hi, I'm Tracy. Today I have a history lesson I want to share with you. I'm quoting journals of the Bill of Rights. The purpose of government is to secure inalienable rights, which is the function of the Bill of Rights. Signer of the Constitution, John Dickinson, defined an inalienable right as a right which God gave to you and no inferior power has a right to take away. Inalienable rights are written as with a sunbeam, as in a whole volume of human nature by the hand of the divinity itself, and can never be erased or obscured by mortal power. That was quoted by Alexander Hamilton, Constitution signer and co-author of the Federalist Papers. The Bill of Rights prohibits government from violating inalienable rights and commands governments to protect them. Human governments could not give the rights to happiness. We claim them from a higher source, from the King of Kings and Lord of all the earth. They are not annexed to us by parchments and seals. They are created in us by the decrees of providence, which establish the laws of our nature. They are born with us, they exist with us, and cannot be taken away from us by any human power without taking our lives. That's John Dickinson, Constitution signer. Our nation has only fallen by one step. Our government has forgotten that there is a power higher than itself. Religion is the only solid basis of good morals. Therefore, education should teach the precepts of religion and the duties of man toward God. Governor Morris, signer of the Constitution. Human law must rest its authority ultimately upon the authority of that which is divine. Religion and law are twin sisters, friends, and mutual assistance. Indeed, these two sciences run into each other. James Wilson, signer of the Constitution. The English Standard Version of the Bible, 1 Corinthians 15:33, says, "Do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals." In another translation, the King James Version replaces bad company with evil communications. It made me think of the teaching of the new unethical ethics studies. Communist Vladimir Lenin said, "Give me 4 years to teach the children, and the seed I have sown will never be uprooted. Give me a child for the first 5 years of his life, and he will be mine forever."
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hope Horming.
Another history lesson. Those who do not study history are doomed to repeat it. So for my high school Black Studies class in the 1960s, I'll quote Booker T. Washington in the language of his day, quote, "There is a class of colored people who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, the hardships of the Negro race before the public. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose his grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs. There is a certain class of race problem solvers who don't want the patient to get well," end quote. Booker T. Washington was calling out the race baiters and race hustlers of his day. But unfortunately, we still have a class of so-called Black leaders, politicians, academics, experts, and intellectuals who sometimes slander Mr. Washington because they make a living pointing out racism as the cause of Black people's problems. These people, with their overblown rhetoric, academic arguments about systemic racism and violence in the street, has done absolutely nothing to help the impoverished Black Americans. Well, I can tell you the same thing applies in education. And there have been education hustlers calling themselves consultants for years. I was an elected member of a public school board 30 years ago, and we had just as many consultants peddling their services for the trendy education topics of the day. Now it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. Last night, one of your consultants explained how diversity, equity, and inclusion is woven into your curriculum, campus, and classroom climate. Later, a parent told me how students made rainbow bead bracelets in class during Pride Week. How is that academic essentials like math and reading? This school district may be in the top 20% in the state, but your graduates are only 57% proficient in math, and only 80% of your graduates are proficient in reading. This is very troubling to me, to be at the top 20% in California, when California is ranked 36th or 38th academically in the nation, may not really be something to boast about. Hiring education hustlers or consultants is a waste of tax dollars. But more importantly, teachers relay to me, it wastes precious academic time on task that is becoming more and more limited every year. So please eliminate the current trendy stuff to free your excellent teachers to teach academics. And Ms. Davison, if your friend and your sister are so great and kind, I can tell you that I witnessed them bully Lauren, so you might want to address their shortcomings with them.
Christopher R. Ganira? I'm sorry, I'm not very good at this.
I appreciate the attempt.
Thank you.
My name is Christopher R. Ganir. I'm an architect here in Orange County. I'm a parent here in Orange County. And I'm a candidate for Orange County Board of Education Trustee Area 2, of which this is a part. This is my first meeting here in Los Alamitos. And, you know, the presentations were wonderful. It was great to hear from the student who very much put together quite a professional presentation, something to really be proud of. Now, there are a lot of concerns about schools, not just here in Los Alamitos, but all over Orange County. And the corporate world has really bought into diversity, inclusion, and equity, but not really. How diverse is a school district that bans participation for students that live in the area but homeschool? Homeschool families pay taxes too. They pay for the buildings, they pay for the programs, they pay for the coaches. Why are these people not a part of this? They have academic rigor, they like athletics, they like to sing. I have 3 kids that went to SCCC, Southern California Children's Course, and it was a wonderful program. And they didn't exclude homeschoolers. Inclusion. How inclusive is it to ban schools from the constitutionally required education system because they don't get a vaccine? That is crazy. It doesn't matter whether it's an experimental one for COVID or if it's one that's been around for decades. This is direct exclusion of religious people. Not just one religion bars the use of vaccinations. And then there are the people that, you know, care about their health and research it and find out that, you know what, there are a lot of problems with vaccines. Even the oldest one, smallpox, countless people died. Do you know why they aren't banning vaccines now? Because they have an exemption. They can't be sued. All right, and the last of all, equity. There is a vast divide between students that are treated in the school. You have this one group of students that, oh, you know, you're college ready. You're gonna go to college. That's gonna be great. Well, you know what? The majority of kids aren't gonna go because there aren't enough seats in the colleges. So tell me, what's your plan B, Principal?
Thank you very much. Thank you. So that is the conclusion of our public comment. And does anybody feel it necessary to take a recess? Then we will move on with the rest of our agenda. The first item that we have on our agenda is the California School Employees Association, Chapter 324, initial proposal for 2022 and 2023 to Los Alamitos Unified School District. And Mitch, I believe that is you. Oh, nope. Joe first, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. We are happy to have our CSEA Chapter 324 president here, Mitch Mcauliffe, tonight to open our negotiations. So we, in our district, we practice our interest-based bargaining. Part of that process is what we call sunshining articles. And so tonight we're going to open up articles for the 22-23 school contract year. Mitch?
Okay, now. Sorry about that.
Oh, is it? Oh, bring it closer. Okay.
Yeah.
Madam President, good evening. Esteemed members of the board, Dr. Pulver, board members. Tonight I am here to open up Article 16, salary fringe benefits, and also Article 3, association rights. And I just want to let you guys know that we're going to do our best, as we always try to work with each other in collaboration and cooperation. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. So now we will move into public hearing on the California School Employees Association Chapter 324 initial proposal for 2022 to 2023 school year to the Los Alamitos Unified School District. So I will gavel out of our meeting and I will gavel into the public meeting. And do we have any comment on this issue? Seeing none, I will gavel out of the public hearing and back into our board meeting. We will now go into the Los Alamitos Unified School District initial proposal for 2023. I think there's a correction on here. Yeah, but it says 2023. So there is a correction on C. So we'll make that a revision. And that'll be 2022 through 2023 to the California School Employees Association, Chapter 324. And Dr. Frazier.
Thank you, Madam President. I do want to say also, and just extend a big thank you to Mitch. On top of doing all the work that he has in his normal job, he spends countless hours also being the president and representing his chapter very well. So I do want to thank Mitch for all his hard work. At this time, we are going to also sunshine Article 6, which is hours. And then also, like CSEA, not that we're copying you, but we're going to open Article 16, salary and fringe benefits, which we always do.
Thank you, Dr. Frazier. So I'll gavel out of our meeting, gavel into the public hearing. Any public hearing on the proposed initial proposal? Seeing none, I'll gavel out of the public hearing and I'll gavel back into our meeting. The next presentation we're going to go into is going to be our our gymnasium project update, and Dr. Pulver.
Thank you, Madam President. So as part of our bond, when we went out to the community, we knew obviously building the multi-story STEM building, which will add 30 classrooms, math and science classrooms that will be opening up in the fall. Another project that is significant is adding a second gymnasium. And so it's kind of interesting. This is definitely needed on our campus. And I want to thank our voters for allowing us to help with Measure G, it was, right? Forget the second measure G. When we first took a look at this, one of the big things when we had initially had some architects give us some ideas, we were looking at a potential of maybe a 33,000 square foot gym. Our teams at the school sites and our staff really believe that we need a 3-court gym. And we have not committed to whether it be a practice or a competition gym, because like all of us, if you're doing home projects or anything, sometimes our wants/needs are bigger than our pocketbook or bigger than the funds that are allocated for this. And so at that time when we were looking at it, we were really trying to look at it at a ballpark figure of $20 million for this second project. And you will see tonight the scope of, now that we've went back and we met with more staff at the site and with each user group, and then with our architect firm who's going to be presenting tonight, that scope has expanded, but our I don't know if our budget has expanded yet. And so we will have to make some difficult assessments along that I'll just, when we last said, let's go ahead and work with the architect, we said, let's not get bound right now, whether it's going to be a competition gym or an additional practice gym. Let's wait and let's let the process unfold a little bit so we can get more information. And we're kind of one step further along that process. And so I'm going to turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, Mrs. Elvia Galicia, to introduce it further.
Thank you, Dr. Pulver, esteemed members of the board. I'm honored and privileged to introduce CJ Nolan, our Director of Facilities Maintenance and Operations, who's going to present alongside our wonderful West Group design partner. He is our principal, our design principal from West Group. So take it away. And thank you very much for being here today.
Madam President, esteemed members of the board, thank you for allowing us to present this update on the new gymnasium for the Los Alamitos High School. As you know, we're completing schematic design at this time. And as we move forward, we're really trying to find what is the most economical way for us to construct this gym while meeting all of our needs at the high school in terms of a gymnasium. So as we get started on this, I'm gonna hand it off to our design firm from West Group Designs. This is Ken Ong. He's the design principal for West Group. And here you go.
Thank you, CJ. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Pulver, and the executive cabinet, thank you for having us today. Let me move to the next slide. As Dr. Pulver mentioned, we began our process by listening to all the stakeholders and really understanding what are the needs of the athletic programs that will be housed in the gym and what they foresee moving forward in the future to remain competitive with all the other schools that they compete against. And so after those information gathering sessions, we had a program that was approximately 38,000 square feet. And so the first lens that we had to take that program through is basically asking the question, does it fit on the site? And so this kind of diagrammatic colored plan illustrates that program, test fit into the available site, and it's a tight fit. We have to factor in fire truck access, appropriate distances to existing buildings while retaining the functionality of the stadium and the track and everything else around it. And so this basically vetted the idea that, yes, we can get to fit. So then the next lens that we pass it through as we're in this phase of schematic design is basically considering all possible appropriate structural systems, ways that the building can be constructed. And so as appropriate systems for a gymnasium, we looked at a steel and stucco combination. We also looked at a concrete block as a architectural material, as well as also tilt-up concrete, which is essentially the existing gymnasium's construction type. And so each one of these, as you can probably imagine, just like everything else currently that we purchase, has had a lot of inflationary pressures since our firm has worked on the design of the multi-story STEM building that's under construction right now. And so Our team of architects and engineers went through a schematic design process, which allowed for a detailed cost estimating to be done of each one of these options. And so the approximately 38,000 square foot building, as you look at the various total construction costs, so that first and second line is basically breaking down the range that we are seeing in terms of construction costs going anywhere from about 21.5 million to about 27 million, and the associated square foot costs. Now, that is just construction cost. We're also looking at what is total project cost, and that includes basically soft costs, the costs of paying for inspections, the fees associated with DSA approvals and other agency approvals, along with all the costs associated with the engineering and architectural efforts. And so the bottom line that you see there as total cost is project cost. And so factoring in the soft costs, the budget is landing somewhere between 27 million and 33. That is significantly more than what we were seeing just a few years ago with a much more complex building in the multi-story STEM and all the systems that were part of that project. So again, we don't assume or presume a certain aesthetic. We're thinking about making use of brick veneer. And so as a line item kind of down at the bottom of this slide, you see if we were not applying brick to it, what would that save if we were just looking at those kind of construction materials that are outlined above? That's about over $300,000 worth of brick that could be applied to any one of those schemes. But if we were looking at it without that material, you can think of it as a savings of over $300,000. So,
may I ask?
Sure.
Sorry, before we I had to press my mic. Before we go on to the next slide, if I know I've been in a lot more meetings than the board has, so could you unpack this design and the meetings, the three courts, what the brown, what the blue, what the reds, all of that, kind of just give us a little bit more of a layout, because I think that's going to help us before we get to that next slide.
Absolutely. So essentially the largest element, and this is all kind of color-coded by program spaces, the largest element is obviously the actual gymnasium space, and that is 3 full competition courts. So a high school level competition court is 84 feet by 50 feet, and what is shown here is 3 courts that can be utilized essentially at the same time for practices as the full configuration. The existing gymnasium, as a point of reference, is 1 competition court that is that size, with 2 cross courts that are basically youth courts. A youth court is smaller in length by about 10 feet and is narrower in width by about 8 feet. And so you're practicing on a court that is really not the same size as the competition court. So this as a configuration is actually more efficient than, say, hey, what if we do a single competition court in an arena style setting with 3 practice courts? That actually winds up being more space than having 3 full courts. As a reference to this size of a court, it is very similar to what Mater Dei has. It is also similar to what you see at Hector Godinez. So those are the scale that we're talking about. This allows for the northernmost and southernmost courts to essentially have bleachers that expand into it for the actual game day event. And the bleachers would essentially cover those entire courts and would be able to seat 1,000 students on each side. So this court configuration offers the most flexibility and seating to accommodate both the basketball, volleyball, to have the entire basketball program practice at the same time. So that's the main piece. Kind of flanking that as programmatic elements to the north, you have in the kind of blue color, all the equipment storage that services the gym. So that would be shared by all the athletic gym programs as storage space that's accessed directly from the gymnasium space. Currently, a lot of storage is happening outside in sea containers and other things, which introduces a lot of weather damage to the equipment and makes it very challenging to get the lifespan out of the equipment. Associated with that on the west side is essentially a brand new weight room that would support the gymnasium athletic program. And that was the number one thing that we heard from, to be honest, from all the athletic programs as being a need that has constrained their ability to train and the amount of time that needs to be essentially scheduled in order to make best use of the gymnasium. So that is flanked to the north and south by outdoor fitness areas. And those are essentially covered outdoor spaces that would support plyometric exercises, in addition to the weight training that's happening within the weight room.
Just want to interject. Remember, one of the reasons why practice space as well is so that our students don't have to either be up so early or so late. And the same thing is happening with our weight room. So there are some groups that have to, how early is it? 6 o'clock in the morning, Mrs. Reed? And so that is why one of the big needs is trying to find another weight room to be able to accommodate so kids don't have to get up so early. We know what the science says about that. So that's the other thing that we're trying to address. Yes, I don't know if we've ever seen formally I think we just saw some preliminary when we were looking at all different architects. So the light blue is an actual building. On each end there's an outdoor. Yeah.
So kind of moving on and looking at some of the other programmatic elements directly to the south in the red from the gymnasium are the team rooms. And so there are 4 team rooms and 1 film room. And so that supports both boys and girls basketball and volleyball programs. Directly kind of grouped with that are some support spaces for custodial, where gymnasium maintenance equipment is adjacent and very easy to access the gym, along with a kind of room on the other side that is labeled AV. And so that controls all the sound and lighting for the gymnasium space. And one of the things that we heard from the coaches was the desire to have a separate kind of circulation for the athletic teams to be able to go from the gymnasium to the team rooms without necessarily overlapping with public circulation. And so that's kind of showing a dedicated sort of back of house circulation that allows the teams, if they need to go and access some of the facilities in the existing gym, to exit the main gymnasium space, go to the team rooms, and then also have a way of connecting back to the existing gym. One of the things that we heard about the current gym is the challenge of entering directly from exterior spaces straight into the gym, and the amount of wear and tear that is happening to the gym floor surface just by patrons attending a game, coming straight from the outside into the gymnasium court space. And so one of the constraints that we have here, by the size of the gym and the proportion of the site, is accessing the gymnasium and where the seating is and how you get to it in a controlled environment. And so to the east side, we have essentially a interior corridor that runs the full length of the gymnasium from north to south that allows for circulation from the main lobby that we are calling the Hall of Champions in this floor plan as an entrance that allows spectators to come into the gymnasium space at whatever is the appropriate entrance closest to the seating. And that also allows exiting of students for large assemblies in a controlled manner that is not bottlenecking in any one particular spot. And so as you look at that corridor, that's essentially facing the stadium side. To the very northeast, at that end, we have one of two sets of restrooms, and those are there both for convenience of spectators or people utilizing the gym as restrooms that are accessible along that corridor, but it's also doing double duty as servicing or supporting the baseball fields and the athletics that are farther out from the existing PE facilities. So as a diagram, that corridor kind of comes all the way to the south end, and that's primarily the main entrance point and the main face for the gymnasium, which is on axis with the approach drive as you come entering into the campus and into the parking lot. So you're literally looking at the south face as the new face of the athletic kind of arrival at that end of the campus as you kind of come in and park. And so that Hall of Champions on the interior is flanked on two sides in red there. On the kind of west side, the left, we have a small ticket booth that is kind of grouped with directly across a small hallway there, a referee's office, or can be utilized by refs or coaches for private meetings. We have a staff restroom, single occupancy restroom that is used or accessed from that private circulation for the teams, but also a new set of restrooms that is both accessible from within that lobby space, or when the gym is not in use, can be accessed from the outside, supporting the day-to-day student needs for restroom facilities. Across on the east side of that Hall of Champions lobby is essentially concessions, which is also double-sided. So there would be service windows both facing the inside of the Hall of Champions, the lobby, but additionally, when the gym is not in use, that same concessions can be servicing the stadium function. So flanking that directly to the north of that element are just a couple of support spaces, electrical rooms, and data and telecom. So that's essentially the bulk of the program and what the floor plan is looking like, that reflects all the comments and needs that we heard from the stakeholders.
And then I just want to remind that these estimates are the best information we have today. So remember, sometimes we get beat up because a year from now things change. This is with the best information we have today. And we did try 3 different approaches to see which would be the best economically to yield that.
So separately from the previous diagram in those colors, this is a slightly different variation that just tried to look at program components by groupings and what percentages of the overall program they reflect. And so the main gymnasium space is really grouped with the equipment storage and the necessities like the electrical and data room, and some of the support spaces like custodial and AV as being, that's the core chunk, and that square footage equates to over 60% of the program. Then we're looking at other elements For example, like the team rooms, that as a grouping is another 11% or roughly 4,200 square feet of space. We go down the line and you can kind of see those elements as we look at restrooms or groupings of the lobby and ticketing and concessions, and essentially what those elements equate to as a percentage. And you can apply the math to, our original costs from a square foot standpoint to kind of get a sense, depending on which system we're looking at, whether it's steel and stucco or tilt up, the range of what that square footage generally equates to.
And so on this, we use the concrete tilt up, which was the 27 million, because that was the least. And so the reason this will be important is right now our budget is 20, maybe 21 million. So this might be helpful to help us take a look what pieces might have to programmatically be removed if we want to stay within our budget, unless the board wants to say add more, which will just mean there's less available for other projects. And I'm so sorry, Ms. Guttulli.
Okay. I have two questions. The first one is the program scope summary. Is this in the order of preference from a group decision with the coaches and the staff at the high school? Or was this also done logically from an architectural standpoint?
Almost neither. It's really right now grouped more from just a size standpoint.
Okay, no problem. And I don't know, CJ, if you can answer this question or not, or if I'm even have this incorrectly. But if, let's say we were going to submit the plans for the whole scope and they're approved by DSA, and then we don't build it, do we have to go back and, so let's say we only built part of it and we wanted to go back and do the concession stand later. Will that have to go back through DSA if it was originally approved by DSA?
The short answer is yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, it is possible to design it to be phased. So we could have an approval for that floor plan, for example, but somehow design, say, the weight room, which the way that it is located can be almost thought of as a saddlebag, right? It could be a component that could be additive that is independent of the main gymnasium. But if you were to say, can I add the team rooms later, then essentially you're building out the box and leaving out the, the interior.
Right.
So but just because it's built or planned, and let's say we don't have the funds to do that later, you're not bound by doing it, even though it's DSA approved. It just gives you the permission to do it.
Yes.
And then that approval is good for how long?
A year.
1 year?
Yeah.
So I had two quick questions as well. Thank you. You talked about removing the brick veneer, and then I know that seats were talking about that, but later making it a competition as opposed to just practice. Are those two things, is it possible to add those two things after the fact? Can you come back and act the brick veneer? My brother-in-law did it to his house, so I just don't know.
You could. It's on the outside.
The short answer is yes, it is a additive element. It doesn't necessarily get any cheaper by deferring it.
Okay, thank you. Right, and I just mean that so I appreciate that. And then what about the retractable benches? Is that structurally built into this, or can that be something that's added later?
The bleachers would be considered equipment. And so that could be a deferred item if you want to hold off on having the seating. But generally, I'd say if you were just looking at this as a 3 full court competition court without the bleachers, I think you're losing a lot of the utility or functionality of creating such a configuration.
Okay, then I'm a little confused because I thought that the floor plan that we're looking at right now would either be a 3-court facility that we would use as a practice facility, or it would be competition, and the difference would be the competition would be bringing in the bleachers.
That's true. There may be a way to design a 3-court gym that you're not having to factor in the escalation, the accordion of bleachers.
Right.
But yes, this could be simply a 3-court gym. What would make it a competition gym is the bleachers. Are the at least 2 team rooms, probably a concession stand.
So we're really looking at a competition gym.
We don't know where that we're. Well, it depends if we're willing to do up to 27 million.
Yeah.
We're going to show you a way that if we still want to have a competition gym, we could. We have to scale a lot of other things out, but you could do it close to within 20, 21 million.
Okay. Well, let's go there. Let's move on. Oh, no. I just have a quick question. So looking at what items you could eliminate, we could eliminate the corridor, but it's not a big savings, and we would have to repair a floor then that would be damaged because we don't have that circulation corridor. CJ, do you know how emphatic the coaches were about the weight room and outdoor fitness areas? Because I understand the need, but they'd be the easiest to add on.
It was pretty much all of the coaches advocated for the weight room. It was I would say one of the primary needs outside of the court space itself.
But also, as you realize, probably one of the things you could add as a future project easier than some of the others. So that's what we're going to have to really kind of wrestle with this.
And as Dr. Pulver was mentioning earlier, we wanted to show you what an option of a competition gym might look like that is within our project budget or right close to it. So as you can see with the gym picture on the right and the items on the left, we would have our 3 full courts. We would be scaled down to 2 team rooms. We would be keeping both the south and north restrooms. And then we'd have a limited Hall of Champions ticket booth and concession stand for the main entrance, while removing the longer corridor that was shown on the previous gym floor plan. And as you take all of these items and total them up, it gets us to a $20,005,597 number.
So the other 2 things, there are some things you could phase in or out. Obviously the weight room, as you see here, the restroom up here could probably as well. The problem is it doesn't yield a significant savings. If you see the cost, and it's just taking the square footage cost divided by the square footage, it's under like 550,000. If you recall, that's a permanent. If you recall the bathrooms at LAE and at Hopkinson, which were portables, but not really designed that way. They're permanent structures, don't get me wrong, but those are 800,000 per school site ish. So it would be even more expensive down the road to add that. Of course, adding the weight room would be more expensive than it would be now as well, just from the economy of scale. So I think at some point we may have to ask the what is a greater priority? Is it a competition or trying to have the practice and the weight room? Because if we hear that from the side, maybe we would come up with alternatives here. We're just trying to present to you something that could feasibly be in budget and meet the original things that we were told originally was most important above all 3 courts, not a 2 court, because a 2 court obviously would be much cheaper. You'd reduce the square footage. Bathrooms was something I know we've heard from yourselves as well as from the community, if it's a competition, to have the team room, et cetera. So this is a little bit more bare bones. The one thing about this that our current gym doesn't have, if you were in this design in a competition, in our current gym, you walk from the outside and you're directly on the floor. There's not this long corridor that you heard them talking about, but there is this corridor of the Hall of Champions for just a lobby, if you would. So coming from the school you go into a lobby first, then you go into the gym. That could help a little bit, but it's not that long corridor.
Yeah.
Are we discussing the pros and cons?
Well, I think ultimately what we're going to need to know from the board, it's probably on the next slide, is, and I don't know if you necessarily have the decision here. I think I assume some of you are going to say, let's go back and talk with staff now on some of these restrictions that we have. Because it is sobering to see what 20 million might get you versus 27. We'll only get one shot to be able to do this. But the other thing I guess we would need to know is so what items should we include or not include? Should we be building a competition or a practice? And or should we increase the amount, which just means right now we have earmarked about 12 million to modernize the remainder of the classrooms at the campus. And that doesn't leave much at all for the PAC to be within our budget. Now, we hope to yield some savings from other projects. We have a few not matching dollars, but some grants of about 3 million. So there may be a little bit of wiggle room, but I'm not sure because I think the 11 million for the modernization of the remaining classrooms at the high school might not be significant enough. So we think we actually need probably 14, 15, 16.
Yeah, around that.
So some of those grants that we're getting, 3 million for the seismic, et cetera, should already help with that. But I don't know if there's that significant enough to fund back into this and not be able to redo the remaining of the classrooms too. So I know it's sobering, but
Yeah, I was just wondering, and I don't even know if anyone can answer this question, is what Marla said, is if that corridor is going to save the gym floor or have the gym floor last an extra 10 years, it's probably worth spending the money to put it in. But I don't know if there's if anyone can answer that question, but how much longer will it preserve the wood floors in the gym if you have a longer corridor? Can you answer that, or am I just asking a question that is unanswerable?
I can't say I can quantify it. I think CJ and the crew can probably speak to the lifespan of the existing gymnasium floor and how much maintenance needs to occur to it. That is atypical from what the manufacturer would expect for a gym floor.
I was afraid you were going to say that. Okay, thank you.
So I also think it just comes into priorities. If that's a 1.6,
right.
Would the site say, if you're going to spend that, do everything you can to try to get some type of weight room, if that's really one of their bigger priorities. So this is where we're going to have to kind of really engage in more dialogue, but I believe, because that'll let this process. And then there are things, like I said, for us to think long-term, short-term. There are only a few projects that can be phased in. Right. And others, you wouldn't go back. If you ended up doing and stripping it down to just the 2 team rooms, you're not going to go back and add the remaining, what was that, 5? There was a total of 5, so the others.
Yeah, and that's a question.
The reason you need 2 team rooms is if it's a competition gym, each team needs a place to go during halftime.
Well, and we've redone, a lot of the team rooms in the other locker.
We do, but we don't. They share right now, and sometimes, so they don't have their own dedicated one. Particularly as the male-female sports have grown over time. So, I think that's accurate.
To me, if we're not going to do a competition gym, we looked at, and this is not what I'm advocating for at all, but we looked at tent practice gym things that we could put up for a couple $1 million. It's either going to be, to me, it needs to be the new competition gym. It would seem silly, not silly, because I know that the practice is necessary, but it would seem odd to have this beautiful facility be our practice facility and not our competition facility. And so if we were going to scale, if we need to scale it back, I would rather see the scale back of the team rooms, knowing that still be a little tight, but we have we have other team rooms, and be able to, where we can envision adding the weight room on later. Where we're going to get another $4 million, I'm not sure, but you never know.
That was the amount of teams that don't currently have their own dedicated team room in the existing gym. So that was a number that through collaborating with the site administrators, that was felt that would meet the needs of the site. Whereas the film room in the middle would also serve as kind of a visiting team room and a film room during times when there's not an opposing team.
There may be, as we have to go back and relook at, retool some of these, because remember, our architects, their job was to meet with every user group multiple times and then try to create something that was responsive to that. Because remember, when I started this, I said, we started off at one point saying a 3-court competitive gym was 33,000 square feet, and it's morphed into 37. So there might be a way, okay, now that we know this, is there a way to go back and tighten some of this up to get it within closer, because it's the square footage that adds a certain cost. And then to think about what can be done later. There could be, we don't know if we're going to receive matching funds. We know the governor has put it into his budget that there's potential use of one-time funds. And so there are some ways, if we found out sooner than later, we could do it with this, but where we could also think about, well, what would phase 2 be? What would phase 3? There are certain things that we don't have right now. We don't have this additional weight room. Maybe that's also something, if we can't do as we move classes into the portables, if enrollment declines at the high school, which we haven't really seen significantly at the high school yet, but does that free up a space that could be as a modified workout room until we can build this? I don't know. I'm just trying to think of all these other potentials that maybe to still also get us to what we're never going to go back and redo some components, and some components can be.
And has staff seen these schematics yet?
They have seen the entire schematic. They have not seen literally the budget figures we just got. We had one prior, the other two we didn't. We just got the third, which was the cheapest, I think yesterday or today.
We got it on Monday, correct.
This was coming under the wire as we were trying to prepare for tonight for all of you. So no, they don't have the sobering aspect that I've been talking about, that of some of these new costs. And as you heard earlier, the escalation right now, just in the world that we're living in, is also probably driving force in some of these.
Correct.
So we use portables, right, for restrooms out by for the track and field and all of that.
The closest restroom is the one right by the gym.
And how much, what is the cost of portables? I mean, we can't keep them forever, and they're rather.
The only cost I can give you right now, the portable at LAE and Hopkinson was $800,000. That was where they were flush on the ground, though. They weren't elevated.
If you were going to do
beyond that, I don't know.
If you were going to do one similar to what's existing at the gym now, it'd be in the $400,000 to $500,000 range, depending on where the existing plumbing is.
Well, you might as well spend a little extra more and get a better one. Yeah, I think we have a need for restrooms at many places on the high school. So whenever we want to put in a restroom, it's a good idea.
We've also talked that as we take a look at restrooms, to add more single-use restrooms too, that will serve other needs across the district, across the site as well. So we would want to retweak some of these here to service all needs of our students.
So, Dr. Pulver, what direction do you need from the board?
Go find some more money.
Well, I guess for me, I think the biggest direction is, do you think that we should still stay within our original scope of 20 to 21? And I've even added $1 million to that, because I think we have to get something accomplished here, significant. Or do you want to compromise in other needs, and we may only be able to do this and not be able to do some of the others? Because I think beyond that, we'll have to kind of go back and meet with staff to give you more input. I don't think you want to make that input without in a vacuum.
Yeah.
And they haven't had that opportunity.
Right.
Or, but it's really, or if you just tell me, no, go for the full 27 and we'll may not be able to do remaining projects. I don't personally recommend that, but I also want to make sure I'm listening to to all
I
of you.
would like to see a short workshop on, once again, breaking those down.
All the money down.
And where recommendation may come from staff, where we could see that would be reasonable to be pulled. Because this is going to be, this is going to come, in a sense, going to complete our campus. But I also believe that our classrooms need to be functional for our students.
Right.
I think in the cash flow that we've presented to you in the past, it was earmarked, was it 11 million for the modernization of the remaining campuses?
That's correct. We had about 11.
And that was just a number pulled out of what's remaining. We don't believe that that's going to be enough to do a basic, not even doing the wiring, all the, but basic carpet, paint, tack board. I mean, we've done all that electrical from the inside, from the.
So we would be primarily doing finishes like the carpet, the paint, ceiling tiles, and it would cover those basic finishes, and it wouldn't really cover any moving of walls or rewiring or moving of outlets for the campus.
Now, mind you, a high school room may not need as much tack board as we did in our elementaries and middles, so we would certainly try to squeeze there. But if you look at our most current building at the high school, the round building and the rectangular next to it, walk into those rooms, you'll see their age and the flooring and the linoleum, some of them, and the carpet, and that's our newest buildings. So it's just a big campus. There's a lot of things going on there, so it takes up those costs.
So the 11 million set aside would primarily be more of a beautification of the classroom, not a modernization.
Yeah.
Can we explain what that difference is?
So it wouldn't include the moving of walls, adding of outlets, or rewiring existing wiring for any of our buildings. It would be like the basic finishes like flooring, paint, ceiling tiles. One of the things we are budgeting to include is new HVAC units for the campus, because that is one of the needs for the high school. But that would be the primary basics of the modernization.
What do we hear from the school sites and administrators as to what is it that they feel like they need in their classrooms? Because the tack board and all of that, I don't think high school needs at all. But what do they say? What do they say? Where do they feel like they're lacking?
So we've talked to the site administrators, and in terms of priorities for the modernization, really or the beautification is really what they've focused on are those finish items. We haven't heard so much as, because we have the new STEM building going in and a lot of our science staff are moving towards that building, we don't have as much of a need to restructure classrooms or move walls or relocate some outlets. Really, it's primarily just been the finishes, and flooring has probably been the number one, with HVAC a close second.
No, I was just going to ask. It just seems that since I've been on the board, we've been doing HVAC at the high school continuously.
Yeah, I don't know if we've replaced those units. I know in modernization, the elementary schools didn't have air conditioning, so we added that. At Oak and Mcauliffe, the units, and Oak wasn't as old, but the system prior wasn't a very reliable one. So I know we replaced the HVAC. Remember, the other things are also the roofing, the ceiling, the sealants of all of that for
constantly, so they wear out,
leaks, et cetera.
So
but I think the biggest, I would say, from preliminary conversations, and I would also say we probably need to go more in depth on that. But the biggest need is probably the beautification, because we have been able to remember our elementaries and some of our middles, they didn't have wiring in every room. And also now wiring may not be the same need now that everything more and more wireless, et cetera. So, but I think carpet, paint, flooring, walls, and audiovisual. We're also trying to tackle some of the audiovisual, as you know, with now. And so with some of the technology funds or COVID dollars, et cetera, with the projectors, et cetera. CJ is also trying to tackle where he can. When we're replacing carpet now, maybe that'll save us from having to do it in the modernization. So using some of the deferred maintenance funds. So we're trying to stretch every dollar to be able to make as many dollars available to projects like this.
What about the PAC then? If we expand the cost of the gym and we're going to try and do beautification on the rooms, what actually are we hoping to be able to do for the PAC?
It really depends on what budget's left. Right now, I think there's not a whole lot. It's probably under $2 million. And I think even earlier, we were hoping that if we got some of these grants, we could earmark a little bit to the PAC. We don't believe right now we were able to dramatically change the footprint of the PAC, but could we do things with, I think there's an absolute need for restrooms that needs to be redone, whether it's on the outside of the building or what. Sound, lighting, whatever. And some of that as well, we are looking, can we do some of those projects through deferred maintenance or other areas when appropriate. But we are also, one of the things that could explore was, an outdoor, using the outside of the PAC. But again, that would be lighting and things and sound. But that might, if you can't change the footprint. But it doesn't allocate very much. I can't remember what was in the planning.
For the PAC, I believe we had nothing at that particular moment.
So the 11 million was for
It was
the
strictly for
modernization and anything
yes.
left over.
Yes.
We were kind of hoping, let's say there's 900,000 savings from $1 million savings from what's in the current budget for the STEM building. We'd be able to use that to apply, et cetera. We can't use that twice. We can't apply that money to the gym and then also say, oh, but we were hoping to hope that for the PAC. And so
The current projects that we could possibly do with the PAC, like AV and audio-visual, was either general fund or deferred maintenance or any other technology funds that we may have. So it wasn't specifically from the bond money. It was from other sources that we could possibly tackle some of the PAC projects.
To me, I noticed when at the extravaganza, the other schools just used our basic what we had, and when our choir came in, they brought in all this extra sound equipment. So without bringing in extra sound equipment, it appeared that, I couldn't hear a lot of the voices from the other schools.
So I'll ask again, what direction do you need from the board?
I guess the first one, should we be staying within our $20 to $21 million scope at this point?
I think we need, my opinion is if we stay within that, I'd want feedback from staff if they're going to be, if this is going to be livable.
Yeah.
Because I can see a point in time where we can put a weight room if we have the space. The interior corridor is nice, but not necessarily necessary. The 2 team rooms, I'm comfortable with that being cut. It's not perfect, it's not ideal, but I think this being a competition gym is the most important thing that there is. So if we put all hands in on that, that leaves us to 21. If not, if there's things that we're not seeing, and then I just would want that input. I don't want to make that decision without that input, because then we're not listening to the people that are actually using it.
I agree, but I guess I'll need clarity. Let's say no. And so it's a 27 million. Are we willing to compromise the remaining dollars for the modernization of the remaining classrooms? I'm assuming we want it all, but obviously we have to live with it. So I guess I'm trying to understand, where is that? Are we also trying to prioritizing to secure enough funding, and maybe we need to go back and take a look at what the needs are and get a better estimate? That's fair. But are we willing to increase the scope of the gymnasium project at the potential negative ramification of taking monies that were earmarked towards and being okay? We may not be able to get to everything on that piece. We do the first projects that we have first, get the best that we can, and whatever's remaining, we use whatever's remaining to do the best we can of that.
Would it be wise? I just think that this gym's been there for 50 years. This is a permanent footprint. And like to even have considered a practice gym only seems really short-sighted over time. So I'm glad we're looking at this. And I would love the input of the staff. And I think we need to look at cutbacks on the things that could be put in later at the least amount of cost, like the weight room. You know, we don't always get everything, but then we work towards getting it. You know, and as far as the rooms go, I mean, I think that's important because as a teacher, you walk in and you like everything fresh, but this is for 50 years.
Yeah.
Remember, right now they don't have those team rooms and their function. Right now we don't even have this gym, and their function is not ideal. So anything is absolutely going to be. Right now we don't have that weight room. We'd like to try to solve the fact that our kids have to wake up so early, et cetera. That might be something we can do in a future project. And in theory, you could tell us do the other bathroom up by the baseball fields later too, because that is a project you could probably do as a standalone as well, the way that it's designed. I just don't know if saving $500,000 and that cost down the road is going to be $1 million or more, if that's worth it when we know bathrooms is also an issue way outside that area of the campus. So that's what I don't know is a non-negotiable, negotiable or not, you know.
So I think that any other input, because I'm going to try to summarize so we can move on. Scott, you haven't said anything? Oh, thanks. That'll help.
I'll give you my 2 cents first, if that makes you feel better. I think we got to talk to the stakeholders and say, hey, this is what we're thinking. And it sounds to me right now, this is what we're thinking with a chance to built in that we could add the weight room later. And see if Elvia can keep an eye on that government budget to see but we won't know if we're going to get any of that money until after we already probably have to start this.
Right.
You know, the timeline stuff. What can we add? And ask the stakeholders, like you said, this is going to be building for 50 years.
At least.
I hate to go cheap now and pay for it later. I mean, this thing's like, we could be like the minimum and then add that $3 or $4 million for the weight room. And you you've touched the most important things. It's not perfect. It's not everything that you could possibly want, but it does check a lot of those boxes. And see if the people say, okay, listen, those 2 rooms, you're saving $2 million between there's actually 5 rooms with the AV room and the 2 room. That's a couple million, which that's a lot of money.
Right.
The bathrooms, I think Dr. Pulver is absolutely correct. You can't go cheap on bathrooms. You can never have enough bathrooms. And I'm a guy, so I usually don't have that much issues with the bathroom.
But so from what I'm hearing, and this is the question I'll ask. So from what I'm hearing, I think that we are leaning more towards the scaled down version with adding later, because do we all feel that 11 million and we have earmarked, or at least a good portion of that, we need to modernize the classrooms. I've walked into a couple of those classrooms. The carpet is, it's disgusting. And, you know, I just, you have to do that. We all do that, you know, in our homes. So, and is there a way to scale that? So is there a way to look at, you know, getting what we need to get from this gym that we can't go back and get after the fact, and be able to phase in the modernization of the rooms as we go along? I think that is that where we are?
I think this tackles a lot of what they've asked for from the very get-go. Remember, when you go and you ask groups, money's not the object. We had never, prior to re-meeting with, if it was a competition room, it was 2 team rooms. So I think probably the biggest sobering thing for them will be the weight room. But if there's an option that we can add that down the road, because otherwise, this really, if we go back and look at the original, what they told us before we hired West Group, what were their critical things? It was 3 courts, it was bathrooms on the interior and the exterior, and potentially a couple of team rooms, a concession stand, and an athletic presence. So this tackles a lot of that, and if we can eventually, and we will always also try to find ways to sharpen. How could we squeeze this in? How could we maximize our dollars? Even just like we did with the multi-story once we hired Erickson Hall. We also had them try to value engineer certain things, which West Group is trying to do on the front end as well, but we can do that moving forward. And CJ's been doing that by trying to get 3 different design builds because one design build might be a little bit cheaper. So we're going to keep doing our work to maximize that. But I want to make, this will be a significant building, a 3-court competition gym, bleachers for 2,000 students to be able to hold an assembly for the campus with their restrooms, et cetera. This is nothing to squawk at. I need to make sure we realize that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm really glad you're including the bleachers because think of that later. This is how the community is going to know about this gym, and they are going to be part of the celebration.
That's right.
Watch the games.
And yeah,
It's their money, yeah. It has
So
to be a competition, Jim.
Yep.
It has to be a
Do
competition.
you have your
Jim.
direction?
I think we do. Yes,
Okay.
I'm clear.
That and find more money.
More money.
Find more money.
Thank you.
No, I'm
Thank
just
you.
not. Thank you so much for coming. We really, and
you.
sitting
Appreciate your
through our
expertise.
whole meeting. Yes. Okay, we are going to move on to presentation of supplemental materials. Deputy Superintendent Reed.
Thank you so much, President Hill. Tonight we're bringing forth CK12 for high school. This will serve as a supplemental material for our LHS NGSS chemistry class. These materials will be on public preview with education services for the next 30 days. It's a completely online digital format. So we've listed that on our website, as well as we will have digital devices available at the district office where the community can come on in and preview that curriculum.
Great, thank you. And have you given us access to that?
You should have it today.
Okay, great, thank you. And then the next would be presentation of textbooks. Mrs. Reed?
Thank you so much, President Hill. This really partners with the supplemental material. As you know, we're currently redesigning our chemistry courses. And so the textbook Inquiry Hub from the University of Boulder will serve as the Los Alamitos High School NGSS chemistry class textbook. It's also a digital format, and that will be on preview with Education Services Department here at the district office for the next 30 days. We'll get you that online access as well.
Thank you very much. Okay, next we are moving consent items, and I have that C and D are being pulled. So I ask for a motion for 13A, A and B, and then E through U.
Second.
I have a first and a second. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. I now move on to item 13C. And do I have a motion? A second?
Second.
And discussion?
Okay, so I pulled this. It's an overnight extended field trip for our Los Alamitos High School Jazz 1 students. That's our highest level of jazz band to Los Angeles. They're going there overnight, and they're going to record an album, which I think is incredibly exciting, and I just didn't want it to get swallowed up in things. But I'd like to ask, and I asked in the questions, but I didn't get to see my answers today. Could you explain a little bit more about availability? And Thank you, Andrea.
Absolutely, Mrs. Davidson. So we are really excited. It's a first for any of our programs outside of our choir who has recorded multiple times. Jazz One will be recording. It's completely parent funded. And so they're using some of the money that they had fundraised from the previous Reno trip that they didn't take previously during the COVID time. The album will not be available for sale because all of the music is copyrighted, so they can't profit from it. However, they will be looking for many ways to gift it and share it with the community and patrons of the arts within our community. So it's still going to be just an amazing opportunity for our students to get the experience, to be in a professional sound studio, to record pieces, to get the direction from a producer, and just have that as they move on from their Griffin time with us. So we're really excited, and I really can't wait to hear what they're going to produce.
Yay, thank you, Justin Padilla and all the parents, because this group, it's so funny. If you go to the performances, the very beginning group, if they play first, everyone thinks that's our best group.
Yeah.
And by the time you get to Jazz One, the audience is completely operating on a stunned basis. So this is exciting. Thank you.
It is really awesome. So little known piece of trivia. When I was in high school, I was in choir, and we did a big performance called Stairway to the Stars in Santa Monica, and they recorded it every year, and I still have my vinyl. So I just think that this is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have we have a record player and speakers if you need
Okay, if
to
I need
hear
to
it
listen to
sometime,
it,
bring
thank
it
you.
over.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I think this is really exciting. So all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Approval of the 2021-2022 single plan for student achievement, SPSA. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
A discussion?
Okay, so I also pulled this, and I sort of think it's ironic since there was concern in our public forum today from one parent who felt that we don't ever publicize a problem or an issue or the way that we look at our problems and resolve them. And these plans, and I'd like you to explain them a little bit more, Mrs. Reed, but I just want to say that I took the Hopkinson one, and it was 73 pages long, and it goes from objectives to problem solving, or to looking at data to problem solving. So please, would you share?
Absolutely, Mrs. Davidson. This really is a testament to the great work of our principals. And I also want to give a shout out to Melissa Davis, our Director of Assessment and Accountability, because this really is a 3 to 4 month process by which they partner to work together for sections of the plan that really allocate how they'll spend their supplemental dollars within their school site. It's also a partnership with parents on their school site council. So part of the revision of these plans and approval is getting parent input on that, as well as staff input that work on the school site council. And so these are due annually. They share all of our demographics of our school site, as well as our data. And school sites have to identify problems that they see, write outcomes they predict. And then there's also the component where they anecdotally share feedback and data from the past to show how they're working towards to improve different components on their campuses. And so I think it's a great way. It's very public and it's very transparent for people to see the work that our school sites are doing, the challenges that they have, and the hard work they put into teaming and collaborating with teachers and parents to get the school headed in the right direction and hold themselves accountable to these goals. And I think our principals and our teachers, they really do that, right? They want the best for kids. And when they set goals from themselves, they really look back to say, are we achieving this and are we doing right by the kids we have at our campuses?
So thank you, and I hope that the parents who are concerned about that will go to tonight's agenda online, and they can access every elementary school's 75 or more page plan. So thank you very much. All 9 of our schools, all 9 of our schools. It's so informative and specific, and it made me feel so positive because the objectives are concrete and clearly defined.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And may I add that perhaps Nicole could include something about that in our board updates, the board report that summarizes some of what we talked about, because I think Marlis's point is really good. We do know the problems. And we have a vehicle by which the schools are addressing those problems.
And they're not hidden. They're available. They can get them tonight.
Yeah.
I would just rephrase it from saying problems and calling them challenges, because the one thing that I have always been really very proud of Los Alamitos is that we always want to do better. And it's regardless of where your child is, we want that child to progress. And I remember when we first started getting our reading support in our elementary schools, that the goal was to have the lower kids who are going for the extra reading support and reading lab to get up to grade level. And then we can take everybody at grade level and move them to advanced, and everybody from advanced into genius or whatever the one would be above that. And I just have always been, we kind of have the feeling that it's not enough, that we always could do better. We need, what can we do to help this particular student in this particular item? We realize that everybody's not perfect, and we've always had the philosophy, if we can do better, we can help the kids more.
Absolutely. So I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes 5-0. We will now move on to action items, and our first action item is Mrs. Reed, you're going to be very busy. Our first action item is the second reading and approval of a revised board policy 4131, staff development.
Thank you so much, President Hill. We have 3 that'll be coming up, and just a reminder to our public, this is a typical business that we do within the district by looking at board policies that need to be updated to be compliant with Ed Code or new Assembly or Senate bills. And so I am bringing forth 4131 tonight as a second reading, as previously brought forward.
I need a motion.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 0. And then, Mrs. Reed, do you want to give any more detail, or these are all second readings? And okay.
They're all
So
second
the
readings.
Second readings and approval of revised board policy 6120, response to instruction and intervention. And I need a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I meant to ask for discussion. I'll do that next time. Second reading and approval of revised board policy 6146.1, high school graduation requirements. Second. Any discussion? No. Okay.
We want everyone to graduate.
There you go.
Yeah.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. We are now going on to the approval of 2 new courses at Los Alamitos High School. And Mrs. Reed.
Thank you so much, President Hill. These are really replacement courses. So they're new courses in that we don't currently have the scope and sequence on our campus for our current conceptual chemistry or chemistry course. However, they're going to replace our current conceptual chemistry and chemistry courses that will phase out this school year. We're really excited about the work that our chemistry department, our chemistry team within our science department has done at the high school with the support of Mrs. Krause and Mr. Farver. They've redesigned the 2 courses that will now be NGSS aligned, NGSS chemistry and NGS chemistry honors, and a real benefit of both these classes. They're both A through G approved for both the UC and CSU systems. So currently our current conceptual chemistry course is taken at CSU sites and is not currently approved within the UC system. So we'll be replacing that course with a replacement course, NGSS chemistry, that will be accepted at both the UC and CSU systems.
And just for the public so that they know what NGSS is.
It's the next generation science standards.
Thank you very much. And so I am looking for a motion.
Second.
Discussion?
I have a question. Oh, you go ahead, Mr. Forehand. Go ahead.
This is for the AP chemistry class is staying.
Absolutely. So we'll still be offering 3 levels of chemistry. We'll have NGSS chemistry, NGSS chemistry honors, as well as advanced placement chemistry. With our AP chemistry class, that scope and sequence and curriculum is actually handed down by the college board. So it's not something that we have their purview to tweak.
Okay. That was the same question. Great minds are thinking alike.
Okay, so that means we're done with the discussion. I can call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We now move on to the approval of warrants. Our warrants are basically the checkbook of the district. And so I am looking for a motion.
Second. Okay.
And then just so the public is aware that we look at every distribution that is sent out by this district. And when you have a $110 million, $118 million, where's our budget? About 120, keeps going up. $120 million budget. There are a lot of distributions. And so the board has the opportunity to look at every one of them. If there are questions related to any of those, we send them in and get answers. And thank you very much, Mrs. Galicius. And so we are looking for approval of warrants. I have a first, I have a second, Tina. Any other discussion? I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We now will move on to the acceptance of donations. We are exceptionally appreciative of our very generous community. Year to date, we are at $725,984. Thank you very much. And so I need a motion. I need a second. Any discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay. None. So that passes 5-0. We are now moving on to acknowledge the receipt of a claim dated March 7th, 2022 and received March 7th, 2022, submitted on behalf of AB by Ivan Sampson of Parashay Boyle. Oh, goodness gracious. Rapapudi, thank you. And reject the claim in compliance with Government Code Section 911-15 and 945. Mrs. Galicius and Ms. Galicius.
Thank you, Madam President. As stated, based on government code, we are required to acknowledge the claim and reject it per council's recommendation. Therefore, from this point forward, the council will then provide us with the defense on this case.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion? A second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 0. Passes 5-0. We will now look at the classified personnel report, certificated personnel report, and administrative certificated report. And Dr. Frazier.
Thank you, Madam President. I am bringing forward all three of our our personnel reports tonight as presented.
Do I have a motion? Second. All those in favor? Oh, wait, discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. That concludes the opening part of our agenda, and I do believe that we will be moving back into closed session.